We're going to have a great 4th of July in Washington, D.C. It'll be like no other. It'll be special, and I hope a lot of people come, and it's going to be about this country, and it's a salute to America. And I'm going to be here, and I'm going to say a few words, and we're going to have planes going overhead, the best fighter jets in the world, and other planes, too. And we're going to have some tanks stationed outside.
We don't need to shout to be heard. We don't need to roll tanks down the streets for the rest of the world to know our strength and our might. I don't know that these kind of displays are necessary.
And a Democrat on the House Armed Services Committee says a Normandy-type speech would be fine, but...
You know, at Normandy, the president did bring people together, and I think that was well received. And I think that's what we want to see again. If it's a political rally, I don't think anybody will disagree that that is a poor use of funds.
With that, let's bring in our panel. Washington Post columnist Mark Thiessen, Catherine Lucy, White House reporter for The Wall Street Journal, and Tom Rogan, commentary writer for The Washington Examiner. Tom, let's start with you. What do you think about the controversy heading into the 4th of July celebration?
Well, I think clearly people have made their mind up. Most people on the right and the left. I think most people in the center of the country wouldn't really care. But I do think there is a political angle for the president here, because the imagery of Democrats, especially in the rhetoric in terms of comments on ICE, the idea of border security being something toxic, this allows President Trump to take a very notable counterpoint. I think the imagery of the military as a sort of appropriation of that as a political tool serves the president with his base in the same way that Democrats are running on that sort of more hostile position towards immigration. So I do think there's a political component here. We shall see what the president says tomorrow, and at that point we can make our verdict.
Catherine, what are you hearing from sources at the White House about this upcoming big event?
Well, I was actually in the Oval the other day and asked the president about this, and he's very clear about what he wants. He has wanted this for a long time. He wants a display of military equipment, of military might. He wants to address the public. He wants there's going to be military flyovers of planes. He wants to put on, as he said today, I think in a tweet, he wants to put on a big show. What I'm told by people close to him, in the White House, is that the speech, as of right now, they want to keep the speech patriotic. They want to focus it on the military. And I did go back and look at his comments at the last 2 4th of July celebrations, at the White House, where he addressed military families on the South Lawn. And he did, in those, really stick to sort of patriotic remarks, talking about the military. People will also note that there are times when he does, at Normandy and other occasions, when he really has sort of, kept to that tone. Right. The question is, at a big event, especially, if there's protesters, if there's other things going on, can he kind of keep to that idea?
Mark, your thoughts?
I mean, the Democrats are big clowning themselves by making a big deal out of this. I mean, for crying out loud, we had tanks rolling. You just showed the pictures before. We had tanks rolling down the streets in 1991 after the Persian Gulf War. New York Times reports that they bring more armored vehicles into D.C. on a regular basis at the D.C. Convention Center for Defense Industry events, and they're bringing it in for this thing. And for the Democrats to be complaining about the cost of this is a party whose candidates collectively proposed $50 trillion of spending in their debate last week. And they're complaining about Trump spending a couple $1 million for some flyovers and a couple of tanks. I mean, come on. This is ridiculous.
This comes as some suggest the country could use a shot in the arm in terms of morale. Take a look at the Gallup poll showing patriotism dipping most recently this year. Folks extremely proud to be an American has dropped down to 45%. Very proud to be American, 25%. Moderately, 18%. Only a little, 9%. Not at all, 3%. Your thoughts on the patriotism front?
Well, I, as an American who grew up abroad, I always find it quite staggering that people aren't hugely proud to be American, whether it be the narratives of freedom, the Constitution, the power, the selflessness in terms of charity, things like NATO. But look, I do think, again, at the political level here, there is a challenge for Democrats increasingly into 2020, because I do think in the center ground, if you add up the cumulative factors there of very proud or proud, it still massively outweighs the people who are not proud. And the more hostile your rhetoric is seen to become, and certainly President Trump will present it that way, the more dangerous I think you find yourself in a position as with identity politics with Americans who say you want to be president and you seem equivocating about patriotism.
Catherine, thoughts on patriotism?
I mean, I think what that reflects is that we are in a very politically incredibly polarized moment in this country. I mean, I think that's clear across the board. And I think the criticism of what the president is, the changes he's making to the event, some people are raising the idea that this is typically sort of a nonpartisan celebration. It draws people from sort of all political persuasions, and the concern they're raising is that the sort of what the president is injecting tomorrow will change that. I asked him about this on Monday. Can you give a speech that will reach all Americans? And he thinks he can. And so I think, again, we sort of come back to, can he connect to people tomorrow?
Mark.
I think that the poll numbers and also the hostility to this on the left shows exactly why President Trump needs to have this celebration, a salute to America. So we just had this moronic New York Times video, I don't know if people saw, where the New York Times said that America's not really great, we're just okay, because countries like Norway and Denmark and Sweden have lower poverty rates, better health care outcomes, and all the rest of it. And they also have freedom. Well, the reason they have freedom is because of the Pax Americana, because of the United States military, which secures peace and provides a security umbrella. If it had not been for the United States military, they'd all be speaking Russian. So, the idea that somehow, I think there's some people who might need a little bit of a reminder about why the United States military underpins all the freedoms that we take for granted in this country.
Final thoughts in terms of 2020 Democrats, some talking about their fundraising, some talking about poll numbers. We only have a few seconds left, but briefly, who's surging, who's dropping? Your thoughts?
Very quickly, I think clearly Kamala Harris has the momentum, the initiative there. The question becomes, though, what happens to all those lower-rung candidates? Do they start dropping out as the funding localizes?
I think we're going to see a lot of candidates out in Iowa tomorrow, which there's some new Iowa polling suggesting that Kamala Harris is surging. I think also it's noticeable that the president made a point of commenting on her debate performance, which shows you who he's watching.
Mark, it didn't hurt Joe Biden that much. Everyone thought this was like a death blow for Joe Biden. It helped Kamala Harris, but Joe Biden has not dropped in the polls all that much. So
Panel,
he's still alive.
thanks.